I've got a timeline into the system. Okay.
He's hooking up.
Thank you for your patience, Mayor and Commissioners. We have one zoning case here tonight for your review. There may be up to 3 next month for review. The first case is an application of Joe Wall from agricultural to C5 commercial. It is located on Highway 48 near the Dixon County line. It's just south of Barton's Creek Road. The application statement is this rezoning is to satisfy the requirement of a stipulation on the purchase by a national commercial chain. The property is cross-hatched here, and if you look to the property to the south is the Wall House. Next property to the south, which is in Dixon County, is Joe's Tire Shop. County cornered across from the subject property is a BP station and Subway shop that are in Dixon County. The C1 started out as a hardware shop, transitioned to a daycare center, and I believe closed about 3 years ago. So there's obviously no C5 in the immediate area. The field is vacant. There were no adverse comments by any agencies. There's adequate stepping site distance to get in and out of the site for a development. There were emails in favor of the project as well as telephone calls in favor of the rezoning. At the Planning Commission public hearing, Commissioner Riggins, whose district is to north, said he had spoken with several residents in the area. None were opposed to the project and several were in favor of the rezoning application. There was no opposition expressed, either email, phone calls, or at the Planning Commission public hearing, and the staff and the Planning Commission both unanimously recommend your favorable consideration of this rezoning.
Ma'am, excuse me. You'll have an opportunity to speak. We have a public hearing. We're not in public hearing right now, so you'll have the opportunity to speak.
Are there any questions of the
Questions, any commissioners? Commissioners, I would ask y'all if you don't mind to use your right to speak button. I know we can't see it because but Jeff can see it. You got anybody want to speak? All right, Dr. Ripple, anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. As you're taking down your computer, I'm sure we're going to probably have a few people come to the podium. We're now going to enter into a public hearing regarding CZ-4-2016. For the members in the audience, we would ask that we'll ask for anybody that would like to speak in favor of this zoning resolution and anyone that like to speak in opposition. We would ask that when you come to the microphone that you please give your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please limit your comments to no verbal attacks on anyone. With that being said, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ-4-2016? On behalf.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you again tonight.
If you don't mind, most everybody knows who you are, but tell everybody who you are.
I'm sorry. Vernon Weekly, 4740 Highway 41A South. I'm an engineer and I represent Mr. Turner and on this rezone request. We went before the Planning Commission. The Commission voted unanimous approval and the staff recommended unanimous approval, and I'm asking for your vote for the adoption of this resolution, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions of Mr. Weekly? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ-4-2016? Anyone else to speak on behalf of CZ-4-2016? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to CZ-4-2016?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Roxanne Percival. My address is 2028 River Road, Clarksville, Tennessee. And I'm employed at Fortune Market, which is 2526 Highway 48, Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee. There's a large group of us here, actually, this entire back row and several on the next row that are here in opposition, but I'm just going to speak on behalf of everybody. We have sent several emails to the District 6.
Riggins?
Yeah.
No, Commissioner Hodges, Arnold
Yes,
Hodges?
Commissioner Hodges in the last several days. Several people, residents that live nearby and people that work nearby. I work and live in this district, and so there was a few things that I wanted to say, and I speak on behalf of a large group of us, and we also have 2 petitions which have several signatures on each petition, but there's some major concerns. First of all, we have $4 Generals within a 12-mile radius, and that is the corporation that the land is right now agricultural, and they're wanting to rezone it commercial to put in a Dollar General. The Dollar General on Highway 49 has been robbed 2 times in the past year. The windows on the one on Highway 48, a few miles up, had the windows shot out. Now, Mike Patel, he's the store owner of the gas station directly across the BP that you saw on the picture. He has 3 stores out there, and it's going to affect his business and his employees. I'm also an employee of his. I'm a single mother. He employs everybody that you see over there. He has almost 20 employees, and bringing in a corporation could largely affect his business, which could largely affect my income as a single mother and several other people's incomes. Mike is, he's a great pillar of the community. He gives credit to lots of employees and customers. He's made a huge mark on the community. There's several families that live nearby that didn't know about the other meeting. There is a very small sign on the corner of the property, which if you drive by, you just blink and miss it. But there's some concerns including the traffic and road safety. There's where the store would be, there's just beyond a hill right there on 48, and that we're concerned that there's going to be a lot of new traffic coming in and out of the parking lot of the Dollar General, and it's going to cause a threat to those attempting to come in and out, as well as the drivers on Highway 48. There's also the lighting issue. A lot of the people that live out in that area are concerned about the lights that are going to be on in the parking lot throughout the night, the extra light pollution. We live out in the country, we enjoy the country life, and it just feels like it's going to be a lot of extra lighting. Also, when you bring in a corporation like Dollar General, you don't just attract shoppers, you attract shoplifters, you attract people that are going to plot, burglaries and robberies. So it's going to bring negativity in that way. And then also Dollar General, and with their appearance and cleanliness, they typically keep sell stock outside, and they also sell ready-to-eat food items, and this could cause loose trash and an overall poor appearance. And so we're basically asking that you would vote in opposition. Like I said, there's 4 Dollar Generals in a 12-mile radius. Why do we need a fifth? Why do we need a fifth? They would employ less than 10 people and be putting 20 people at a risk of losing their job. And like I said, myself included, and me being a single mom, I depend on that income. And if Mr. Patel, if his business declines, that means his employees are going to lose hours and ultimately lose jobs. And just doesn't seem fair. So I would ask that you guys vote against rezoning this on behalf of me, the names and signatures I have here, and the people that are with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to CZ4 2016? Do you have a question, Mr. Gannon?
Yes, sir. Mayor, thank you. Can we have all the people, and for and against, stand up, starting with the people that are here for it, and then the people that are in the audience that are against it?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. If you're here in favor of CZ4 2016, would you please stand? Okay, thank y'all. If you're here in opposition to CZ4 2016, please stand. Thank y'all. Dr. Ribble, I have a question. Mr. Riggins, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right, real quick. Of those who stood that's in opposition of it, can I ask the ones to stand that are either employed at one of these stores or are related to somebody that's employed at one of these stores nearby? Okay. Thank you.
My question was about the store the lady made reference to. Did you say it's across the street from the Dollar General? Thank you.
I believe the BP subway is county-cornered from
Okay.
this proposed rezoning. It's in Dixon County, but
It's in Dixon County?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Riggins?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to speak to, as Dr. Ripple stated earlier, I spoke in favor of this at the Planning Commission, so I don't mind addressing some of these. And this is just my opinion. As far as the driving on the TDOT State Highway, the burglary, I really can't see where a Dollar General store is going to make much difference than the existing stores that are there now. As far as the lighting goes, and Dr. Ribble, please correct me if I'm wrong, anything as far as buffers or lighting, we can't do anything about that here at the zoning process because zoning is unconditional. But at the site plan process, they are allowed to at least request those items, correct?
That is correct, and typically you'd request that the lighting be confined to the property. We've done so in terms of several other convenience stores located in the unincorporated area. I'm thinking one on Ashland Road that was done
Right.
that way.
And for what he's talking about, for those that don't understand, the lights will be hooded to where the light will only stay on the property. It will not shine over onto someone else's property. And of course, with the buffers, that's an extra screening around the property from the adjoining residences also. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Dr. Ripple? Our public hearing is closed. Just for the members of the public that may not understand our process, this is our informal meeting, and we will actually take a vote on this next Monday night at 6 o'clock. Moving into our resolutions, I know most of you are probably using your iPad, so I'll try not to just zing through this. I'll go slow. If you get a little bit behind, just give me a hand wave or something and we'll get you caught up. Our first resolution is 16-4-1, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the 2015-16 school budget. As Mr. Grant's coming forward, I think he's handed out a summary sheet to everybody, Mr. Grant, and that summary sheet will not exactly match this total amendment, but I've asked Mr. Grant, and him and Dr. Worthington were very gracious to come and visit with me. They've been through the budget committee, and they gave this snapshot, for lack of a better words, but has all the major items in it. Mr. Grant, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is really the meat of it. Yeah. And so I've just asked Mr. Grant to go over this snapshot, and if there's some detailed questions, feel free to ask. And with that being said, Mr. Grant, good evening.
All right, good evening. Thank you. What I will be starting with, though, before we get into that summary overview, is the first 3 pages of your general purpose school fund budget to look at the revenues adjustments on this. On the first page, and I know you're all familiar with this, is the local revenues, and you're going to see numerous adjustments here as we prepare for also the 16-17 budget, and just try to get these as close as we can for that process, so the numbers as we forecast next year's makes a little more sense to you in terms of that growth also. Let me say, start off by saying, though, that I know a lot of y'all remember what the climate was at the time when we prepared this year's budget. We were having to provide for our core staff to open a new elementary school, and probably the single biggest unknown for us was what was going to happen with Fort Campbell. So there was a lot of unknowns around that, and the proposed budget that we presented you reflected that. In terms of our enrollment growth, in terms of revenue projections. For example, we did project a flat growth. Normally we experience some 600 plus students a year. We would typically expect to grow at least 4% in sales tax revenue a year. With that said, that we had actually projected that to be flat. And as you know from the first round of amendments we brought you, we were estimating at currently about $1.7 million growth in sales tax because Fort Campbell, the worst case scenario, did not materialize, so that it was obviously very positive for us. There were a lot of needs identified that we knew existed at the time that budget was presented, but because of that unknown and uncertainty, we didn't present them at that time. Obviously, we're far enough along in the process now that we feel like it's prudent and timely as we prepare for the opening of next year's budget. Within the budget that was adopted, you may recall that there was also some unknown around the state standards not being set for the math textbook adoption. So that, which was at $3.5 million, actually $3,550,000, and another $2 million we set aside based on some changes in our budget for a Fort Campbell contingency. We're all so about a little over $5.5 million was set aside in the fund balance just to prepare as much as we could for that unknown. So again, we've prepared for the worst, just as you all do with the county budget, and hope for the best. And right now, we're benefiting now from the fact that we had a very little, I guess, negativity or fallout from the Fort Campbell scenario. We actually grew this year about 450 students, which also you'll see impacts our revenue as well. So with that said, again, you're going to see a number of adjustments as we look at the revenue. The net of those is a plus $253,000, and if you add that to the first round of amendments, which we had the sales tax addressed, you can see that from the adopted budget to present, we're looking at about a $2 million increase overall in local revenues. So very positive news, and I think you'll see as we go through this, there's a lot of positive news. Likewise, on the state revenue, at the very bottom of that first page, you'll see that there is a projected increase in the state BEP of $906,000. The majority of that is related to the actual growth of those 450 students. One component of the BEP funding formula allows, there's a pool of money set aside for the entire state, and you share in that proportionally to your growth compared to the rest of the state. So based on what we have received in first of 2 installments, we believe this is a good solid number for us. Any questions on that first page? Yes, sir.
Danny, what's the individual BEP per student?
I do have that here. Give me just a second. The most recent data would be the 14-15 year as far as actual data, and our per pupil expenditure is $8,676 per student. Of that amount, $3,917 is the BEP portion, or 45% of that total expenditure, and that includes all funds, not just the general purpose budget.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the first page? All right, turning to page 2, and you'll see in that first subtotal on that page, the net of the state adjustments of $851,000 increase. The very next category there you see is the federal revenues, and the one I would point out is the impact aid, that Public Law 874, and you'll see a decrease of $304,000. We hope we are about to bottom out on those declines in this impact aid funds. This has been the impact of both sequestration at the federal level, and also they changed in their funding formula, and one of the requirements now requires that in order to count in the survey for getting funds awarded, you have to actually work on the Tennessee side of the base. So if you don't, we no longer can count you, even though your students may be attending our schools. So again, we've just about a $300,000 decrease on the federal side. And then under non-revenue sources, a decrease of $125,000. This is from things like your Title I IDEA grants and even more so your competitive grants that we go after very aggressively. We are able to assess an indirect charge for the administrative support. We've reached a high in our efforts of $16 million in competitive grants, and you'll see this as we get into the federal funds. We've had one of our major grants that is we're not going to be eligible to reapply for that, which is the APIN grant, and I'll share a little more of that in a few minutes. But as a result of that, we're decreasing that estimate by $125,000 on the indirect. Any questions on that page? All right, so the top of page 3, you'll see that the net adjustment of all those revenues in round numbers, $693,000, so almost $700,000. And if you look at the originally adopted budget plus these that have been highlighted tonight, you'll see that the overall has been an improvement of our revenues for this year of $2.5 million. Any questions on that? All right. At this point, what I'd like to do, and again, you can follow along if you wish on your actual amendments, but I'll start covering the highlights from the summary. But as you'll notice on the summary itself, as I look at each category of starting with regular instruction, you'll see in bold print, you'll also see what pages these numbers show up in the amendments. So if you see other things as we go along that you have questions about, just stop me and ask, and I'll be glad to do my best to answer. So, and I've added an additional column. When we met with the budget committee, there was a couple questions, so I've tried to provide a little more information that might make it a little clearer. But in the shaded area that you're going to see to the far right, the first column talks about what the recurring expenditure is as an amendment for this year, but then the very last column shows what it will be if there's a different amount because you're annualizing in the case of salaries. So right now in the amendments, you'll see there's one item here. It just represents the month of June for the last month of this fiscal year when they come online, and I'll go over that more in a minute. So starting with regular instruction, student textbooks, what we ended up doing is adding $565,000 of that $3.5 million set aside for textbooks into this particular category. As we move forward into the end of this year and preparing for next year, we're looking at a different strategy on how we fund both textbooks and technology, a blending of those two accounts, if you will. And we believe this is going to be a much better use of the funds in terms of our stewardship, in terms of meeting the needs of students and the teachers in the classroom. This $565,000 actually addresses the math textbooks, which is about $200,000 of this amount. The balance and the majority of that $365,000, in addition to that, we went back and looked at other adoptions where we weren't able to fully fund the adoption and identified two areas that we needed to address. One was Spanish, which was the majority of this, and then the other was for Latin. The next item, restore school instructional supply allocations. This has been, because of budget concerns in past years, we have been about 50% of our funding allocation for a number of years. We have finally found ourselves in a position to go ahead and bring that back to full funding. And I know this, there was a commissioner that brought this up on the floor questioning that very thing about where we were on that. So you can see that $391,000 requires us, is required to actually restore that to 100% of the allocation for all the schools, and that would be the recurring amount for next year as well. The next item is replacing band equipment. We actually started this last year and was able to do about half of it, $150,000 of obsolete equipment, but we had decided not to put the other $150 in this year's budget until this point in time because of all the uncertainty we talked about. So this $150,000 would allow us to complete that process of updating those band equipment items in all of our schools across the county. STEM program equipment for 4 middle schools at $280,000. Again, everything in this column that's not shaded is one-time expenditures that will go away, and you'll see that as we present next year's budget to you. The other 3 middle schools already have the STEM program, our STEM program equipment. They received them over the last 2 years through grant opportunities. Those no longer exist, and what we're doing with this will allow us to bring the other 4 schools in line with the other 3. So all 7 middle schools will have the STEM program equipment. The last item under instruction, the restoring library book allocations, same situation as instructional supplies. We've been at 50% for a number of years, and this will allow us to restore it for $272,000, and that is the same amount recurring for next year as well. Under business affairs, you can see the warehouse equipment both for Central Office and Central Service South, the $23,000. This is forklift with attachments and some pallet jacks and hand trucks, just equipment we need to do the work and keep our employees safe as they're doing that lifting.
Mr. Grant, excuse me, Commissioner Albert, I think, had a question.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Back up on the instructional supplies, restoring that to all the schools, what is that average per school? Can't be very much.
Well, again, this is only half. There's another $390,000 already in the budget. So that's going to increase it. You're talking about almost $800,000.
So between all the schools, what on average, what would that
I
be?
don't have a calculator with me. What I would tell you is that it's on a per student basis. So we have some 32,500 students, and you would just divide it by the number of students into that amount to get you a per student. And then you can figure out most of our elementary schools are around 800, so it gives you some idea of what that might look like. And we do the same thing with the library books. It's on a per student basis. Now I would tell you, we have other allocations too. This is for instructional supplies, but there's another supply allocation that's not as large for just other school supplies. We have custodial supply allocation. So again, there's other allocations besides this. These are just the 2 major ones in the district. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Your STEM program,
Yes, sir.
you have 290 on your sheets and
Yes.
280 here.
280 is for the actual STEM. There was just 10,000 other vocational equipment that was there, but this was the main item that we were asking that was one-time equipment in terms of identifying it on this list.
Yeah.
Okay. Going on down to operations, the first item is classroom furniture replacements. I will tell you that it's been since 2001 that when we first reduced this line item in the budget to where it stands today at $50,000. When we've had to make decisions in a number of budgets as to whether or not we were going to fund staffing needs versus things, those always take the priority. We're very labor intensive in terms of working with children, and since 2001, we have been in this neighborhood of around $50,000. So we've got a number of our older schools that just have some serious replacement needs on classroom furniture and chairs and desks, and things of that nature. And we'll be in the process, with your all's approval, to start vetting where the greatest needs are. So when you look at literally the hundreds of millions of dollars in assets out in our schools, 200,000 is not going to go real far, but we'll try to hit the most critical needs out in the schools with these additional dollars. Replacing student lockers. This is an item that typically shows up every year on our 5-year capital projects plan, but because we generally focus on our highest priorities of things like roof repairs, HVAC, structural needs, safety, those sorts of things, lockers just never make it to that first year of funding. So this is an opportunity again to use some one-time money to address a very recognizable need when you go out in the schools. This actually, you can see there's an estimate of some 3,350 lockers, and this is for 6 of our schools. Let's see, I've got them here. It's Montgomery Central High, Northeast Middle, Northeast High, CHS, New Providence Middle, and Northwest High are the 6 schools that will be impacted by this amendment. Replacing buffers and vacuums, the 33,000. Again, these are just district-wide needs of equipment that just needs to be replaced. Central Services South. This is a phase of that project to move that forward in utilization of the building. This actually replaces the mechanical system and builds out the district training room, which is a tremendous need for the district right now. We just lack sufficient size spaces for the number of employees we have for larger training groups, as well as the parking. And this will, by making this facility more functional, it will allow us to utilize that space and meet a need of the district. And then the last one under that category is replace a tractor, 3 mowers, and a garbage truck. 300,000. I would tell you that the biggest single dollar item of that number is the garbage truck at 238,000. And I know some of you have been here long enough to remember the controversy when we first got into the garbage business. There was a lot of opposition by the local vendor providers of this service. And when we did this back in 2001, we did it for the same reason we continue to do it today, not because it was glamorous, but because it saves the district money and just allows us to be a better steward of the taxpayer dollars. At that point in time, we had determined we would be able to save $50,000 a year. Today, before we bring this to you, we have been back out in the marketplace to see if that is still the case. And what we found, the best opportunity, whether we look at the private vendor or we look at the state contract was the best option, and it would save us $90,000 a year based on what it cost us to operate. The vehicle being replaced is the original vehicle that we started our in-house garbage pickup in 2001, so this is a 15-year-old vehicle. Going on down into technology. Again, we talked about, as we look at trying to blend the budgets of both textbooks and technology, you'll see we're starting some of that even now as we try to prepare for the opening of next year. 7 desktop support technicians. They would be hired on June 1. That's why you see this a recurring amount of $27,983. July 1 begins a new fiscal year, and so I want to be real clear that the recurring amount is at $335,796. We currently have some 8,000 or 7,000, I guess it is, computers, and we maintain a ratio of 1 desktop support technician per every 1,000 units. These 7 employees will allow us to keep that same ratio with the expansion going closer to 15,000 or more units being added to the district. Begin replacement of obsolete technology. We are looking at, I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of upwards, it could be as low as 15,000, as much as 18,000, depending on the bids that come in. We have 18,000 plus identified needs to be replacement that are at least 5 years or older. But again, depending on the bid prices, which we're getting some feedback that says it could be very favorable and allow us to address that. But the problem is that we can't wait till July 1 to get all those units in place and start processing them, getting out in the schools. So we're looking to do a small piece of that at $625,000, and the technicians will help us get those processed as well as be there for the entire summer to get all the rest of those units in place and ready to go. Also in the, yes.
Could I interrupt you?
Yes.
Those support technicians, does that include benefits?
Yes.
It does include benefits?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is security software for visitor entry into schools, the $155,000. What this is going to allow for us, obviously, you know, we've, with your all's approval, we've been enhancing the security of our entrances. What this will do for us with people visiting into our schools, they will now have to show a picture ID, and that will be able to link into a national database. So if there's anyone there for any reason that it would be problematic for them to be in the schools, we'll know it right at that point in time as they come into the schools. So this will be a significant improvement in our security efforts across the district. So the total of these amendments, the one-time, you can see the $2,421,000. The recurring in the amendments itself is the $1,316,000, and if you look at on a recurring basis, it's the $1,624,000. The total of all these amendments, you'll see a $3,737,000, and you'll notice on the last page, though, that the net of the amendments is actually about just under 3.5, because there are some reductions in those other pages on the amendments. And then if I could get you just for a second to turn at the very last page of the GP amendments. You'll notice, though, even though the expenditures net out right at $3.5 million, that we're only decreasing the fund balance by $2,144,000. So that fund balance from the originally adopted budget at $12.1 million is still, after these expenditures, is sitting at 17.5 or a $5.3 million increase overall. There's a lot of things that factor into that. One of the things I haven't mentioned, for example, is the health insurance premium holiday, which was upwards of $2.5 million that increased that bottom line as well. And of course, the revenues we've talked about. The other thing is the next two lines on there. Every year, we're required to do an actuarial study on the job injury program, as well as for property and liability insurance. And based on their assessment of our past claims trend and experience, we were able to reduce both of those reserves by $300,000. So that also helped us in reducing the amount of the fund balance adjustment by that $600,000. See what questions you might still have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Danny, I assume, let's kind of backtrack a little bit and cut to the chase. 2014, 2015 budget to 2015-16, that budget amount was approximately the same, correct?
Yes, I think so.
Right. So that being the case, since we funded approximately the same amount in those 2 years, my question would be on these recurring annualized expenses, the $1.6 million or so, are you saying to us that you plan to cut $1.6 million of expenditures from the rest of the budget?
No, I'm not saying that. What I would tell you is that based on the funds available that we project for next year, including a sizable increase in recurring funding at the state level as well, when we went to this different strategy in the way we're funding textbooks and technology, I would tell you that the budget as this amended here and the set-asides that we're talking about for textbooks and technology, next year's budget, even though it's growing in the technology side, is actually $2.5 million less than this year's budget as I presented to you in the amendments. And it will allow us to make a significant move forward in next year's budget.
In our household, typically, we look at expenses on a year-over-year basis. And if we didn't expend some money in the past year for something, then we typically look at it, perhaps that's an item that we didn't really need in our budget to begin with.
I don't have the numbers before me, but I would tell you that says they're comparable. We grew from 14-15 to 15-16 over $12 million. And I would tell you that you're going to see a larger dollar amount than that for this next year's budget, but there's going to be an offsetting amount in one-time expenditures, which I think the commission as a body, when you see that, will be perceive that as very favorable in terms of how it allows us to be a partner with the county in addressing district needs. But again, we'll be talking about that more at the end of this month or the 1st of May when we have the budget hearing for the school system budget.
I will say I just have a lot of hesitancy on recurring annualized expenses. I think there's a reason we're commissioners is to watch that, and I have a lot of concern over that.
Well, I would tell you that next year's budget is balanced. in terms of our revenues and our expenditures. I share that at the same time. I go through this every year with this body, and that's what they pay me to keep an eye on. And I wouldn't be presenting it today with these amendments if I wasn't comfortable that we have a sound budget for next year as well.
Thanks, Danny.
Sure. The next fund is our Federal Projects Fund. And I'd mentioned to you earlier about the decrease in some of our grant opportunities. And the purpose of this particular amendment is to reflect one of those. It's a significant grant for us, the APIN grant. It provides funding for our secondary schools for after-school programming. We had budgeted for a full year's funding, which is $1.6 million. We had recently learned with these amendments that we were only receiving half of that year's funding, so you'll see a decrease of the $800,000. And the details of that in terms of where we've cut those programmings for after-school programs are reflected in those pages that follow in terms of just cutting back on the after-school programming as a result of that decrease in $800,000. And so that's really all I have to share with you. I would tell you that we continue to have conversations with the folks regarding the APIN, and at this point in time, that's our best information, but we're still hopeful that could change, whether it happens in time for the adopted budget or not. We are still pursuing those, so we haven't given up all hope on getting those funds back, but there have some issues that are being addressed, not with us particularly, but just from the federal government in terms of concerns they had about the awarding of these grants. Any questions on the federal? Okay, the next one is the Transportation Fund, and no changes on the first page as far as revenues, but you will see, let me find my other sheet here. There is a second page to that handout that I gave you, and I've got some of the information that came up. I tried to be a little clearer on this as I tweaked a little bit based on feedback I had from the Budget Committee. So as you look at the expenditures under the transportation, you'll see first off under contracted services, $57,500 increase. Of that amount, $42,500 is for the, I have it here, radio airtime for our buses. That actual number was budgeted in error under the equipment category of the $216,888. So $42,500 came from that item and was moved up into the contracted service, so it was already in the budget. The other $15,000 is based on a change regarding state inspection on the life extension of buses, and that recurring inspection is an additional $15,000 that wasn't known at the time this budget was prepared. Under supplies and materials, the decrease of $235,000, that's under fuel. We typically budget about $1.5 million each year, and I would tell you that the savings we've generated and expect to generate for this year is what has allowed us to provide for the balanced budget on transportation for next year without having to add any additional, any more state funds than what you'll see when we present that budget. We are actually looking at nearly $1 million in fuel savings, but the reason for the $235 is looking at a 3-year trend of what we've been spending with the ups and downs, and obviously it continues to be very volatile is the reason we don't look to try to reduce it by $1 million. But again, in fact, we've already are starting to see prices increase. But again, we feel like this is a reflective of experience over the last 3 years. The $216,888 in that top of that second page, you'll see a summary of what makes it up. I'd only listed the GPS for school buses because it was the single largest item. There just simply is not enough room to put everything that's in those 4 lines on that little footnote, and that was the reason for I guess the lack of detail. But I wanted you to have that and know what was in that total number. There's also $80,000 for replacing 4 used trucks, a salt spreader, commercial plow, and lift jacks. We've had tremendous amount of success the last couple of years between the county and the city helping us with as far as getting roads clean, but it still falls to the school system to get the parking lots ready and safe for both the students and the employees going in there. We believe by having another piece of equipment with regards to the plows and the spreader and all that will help us minimize how much we have to spend on contract dollars as far as service providers to help get our parking lots complete. We just simply don't have the equipment to do it all by ourselves, so we're hoping this will help decrease our need for others to come in and help us with that effort. The next item, school bus replacements. It was, I want to say 11, 12, and maybe 12, 13, the commission had, in working with us on our budget, we had a significant bubble in our replacement bubbles, and y'all had funded both of those years, $4 million each year for a total of $8 million to help us with that. Well, right on the heels of that, the state passed since then 2 different pieces of legislation that has allowed us to extend the license budget. As a result, we have just now finished spending in this year's budget for next year's school buses, finished spending all those dollars, and it required additional $36,420 to finalize that purchase beyond what we still had left over in the capital projects, and we thank you for that support there. The last item, GPS radio, you'll see in the footnote there, it says 42.5 moved to contract services. The actual amount that originally was projected for that radio service was the $49,532. So the net of all those is that $216,888. The last item there is just insurance premiums. Again, based on actual premiums, we had an increase of $51,951 in transportation. I would tell you that in the GP and net of all the insurance premiums was actually a decrease of $200,000 for the year. This particular category, based on that potential claims and exposure, is where we had an increase, but the net overall was $200,000, which showed up in the GP budget. Any questions on that page? Okay. The last fund is our extended school program fund, and this is self-funded based on tuition of students, and so this is generally up and down based on needs, and that's what drives. It drives the revenue, it drives the expenditures correspondingly. So you can see right now that on summer school we're showing a decrease of $70,000 for 110 for this year. And there was a new line item in the original amendments, that first round of credit recovery that we were doing for tuition online of $20,000. It got a later start than we had hoped for, but we will be reflecting that again for a full year in next year's budget. But the overall was a decrease of $87,500, and then the expenditures have been obviously reduced accordingly based on student-driven need for this particular fund. Any questions on this fund? Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is 16-4-2, resolution to accept Office of Domestic Preparedness State Homeland Security Grant Program EMW-2015-SS-00023 and to appropriate funds. Ms. Arms, you going to handle this?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. This is our Homeland Security Grant for fiscal year 2015. Montgomery County is the host county for our 7 other counties, and so we ask you to appropriate this money and then we're reimbursed. This grant is for $168,583. The grant period is from September 1st, 2015 until April 30th, 2018. They've added a couple of years this time. This is all pass-through money, and we're not require any matching funds, and there's no continuation of the projects. I can go, I don't know if you want me to go through each one.
I think that's
or you
enough
can
unless
see
there's any questions
if you
of
have
the
any
commissioners.
questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Resolution 16-4-3, a resolution to prohibit smoking on Montgomery County government campuses. I think Mr. Smith from the Health Department has a presentation, but he did hand out a revised resolution that I'm not sure how much of the body of it changed, but the caption changed to a resolution to support the smoke-free community initiative on Montgomery County government campuses. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Today is a wonderful day. This is something that I know several commissioners in the audience have been passionate about, and we've asked our state legislators through our legislative liaisons to give this body this power to do this, to address this problem. And we think that we found a solution. And another community, actually 11 other communities, have already applied this within the last year and has not violated the state law that was tying our hands for so many decades. 3 years ago, our high schools all became academies and had a separate academic focus. With that, every one of our academies are looking for projects of what they can do to help improve the community, and at the same time, learn about processes. And I could just tell you, over the last 6 months, the Rossview High School Media Arts Academy and the Clarksville Northwest High School Health Science Academy have worked hard on an issue that we've been trying to address for years. So I will let each one of them introduce themselves and speak to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Deshaun Dale, junior at Northwest High School.
I'm Gracie Sieber, a junior at Northwest High School.
My name is Shodia Sismedia. I'm also a junior at Northwest High School.
Hi, my name is Kayla McLaughlin. I'm Northwest at Northwest High School.
I'm Aubrey Baxter. I'm also a junior at Northwest High School.
Hello, I'm Jarellis Flores, and I'm a sophomore at Northwest High School.
Hello, my name is Craig Barber, and I'm a junior at Northwest High School.
Hi, I'm Leanna Kaiser, and I'm a junior at Rossview High School.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Strobel, and I'm a junior at Rossview High School.
Hello, I'm Zoe Williams, and I'm also a junior at Rossview High School.
Hi, I'm Austin Polster, and I am also a junior from Rossview High School.
Good evening. I would like to thank Mayor Durrett, Sheriff Fuson, and all the county commissioners for allowing us to be here tonight. I would also like to thank Mr. Joey Smith for making us aware of this opportunity. I am Deshaun Dale, and with me are Gracie Sieber, Shodia Sismedia, Kayla McLaughlin, Aubrey Baxter, Craig Barber, and Jarellis Flores. And we represent the Health Science Academy at Northwest High School. This evening, we're here to discuss a very important topic and present a resolution to you that we are confident you will pass. Now imagine this: a woman with 2 children. She wants her children to learn to love to read. So about twice a week, she takes her kids to the library to read J.K. Rowling, Dr. Seuss, maybe even Harriet Beecher Stowe. Now also imagine that every time they walk into the library to read those authors, they also have to walk through a cloud of smoke. This happens weekly. Every time they go to read some books, they also breathe in a cloud of smoke. So this goes on, and time passes. The children start experiencing chronic respiratory infection and asthma-like symptoms. Mom takes her children to the doctor, and he asks her if the children are around smoking at home. He explains that children exposed to smoking are exposed to tar and other harmful chemicals from secondhand smoke. The mom's response was no. No one in the family smokes. Her children were not exposed at home. Then suddenly she remembered. She remembered that every week when she takes her children to the library, most of the time she walked them through clouds of smoke going in and coming out. Her children were getting sick because they were going to the library.
Cigarettes contain more than 7,000 chemicals, and hundreds of those are toxic. The three most commonly known chemicals in cigarettes include nicotine, tar, and carbon monoxide. Nicotine is a very addicting chemical. It is also commonly found in insect spray. Tar is not only a main ingredient in cigarettes, but also in asphalt. The black pigmentation that tar gives off to roadways are also given to the lungs of people exposed to secondhand smoke. Carbon monoxide is the most dangerous chemical found within cigarettes. Carbon monoxide poisoning caused by inhaling combustion fumes alone is responsible for about 430 deaths per 100,000 people annually.
Smoking is a serious national issue. However, it is a greater issue here at home. Tennessee is the 4th-ranked state in the country for active adult smokers. Did you know over 24% of the adult population in Tennessee smoke? That is about 8% higher than the national average. The death rate in the United States from chronic lung disease is 40 people per 100,000. In Tennessee, the average is even higher. More than 52 people in every 100,000 die from smoking-related complications. And when you get to the county level, the death rates get even higher. In Montgomery County, 63 citizens for every 100,000 die annually from chronic lung disease, which is directly from smoking. And when we compare the U.S. death rate to Montgomery County's death rate, we see an increase of 23 deaths per a population of 100,000 from chronic lung disease. Considering we have about 200,000 people in this county, we are losing 44 people more than the national average loses for the same amount of people.
That is only one chronic smoking disease people within Montgomery County suffer from. Montgomery County averaged around 50 lung cancer deaths between 2013 and 2015. This amounted to a ranking of 51st out of 95 counties within the state of Tennessee. Currently, 27% of all calls needed during emergency response are due to smoking. Within Montgomery County, heart disease and stroke cause more deaths than all other diseases combined. These diseases can be linked back to smoking.
According to the CDC, there is no risk-free level of secondhand smoke exposure. Even brief exposure can be harmful to health. Since 1964, approximately 2.5 million non-smokers have died from health problems caused by exposure to secondhand smoke. Some health problems include ear infections, more frequent and severe asthma attacks, respiratory symptoms such as coughing, sneezing, and shortness of breath, and respiratory infections such as bronchitis and pneumonia.
Secondhand smoke affects children greatly. According to the American Lung Association, secondhand smoke is responsible for up to 300,000 lower respiratory tract infections, which results in 7,500 to 15,000 hospitalizations each year. This causes approximately 430 sudden infant deaths, also known as SIDS. Seeing as their bodies are not fully developed, secondhand smoke can also activate fluids to build up in a child's middle ear. Just imagine the number of children we can help when you pass this resolution.
Tennessee ranks 29th among the states for overall secondhand smoke exposure. 47.5% of Tennessee's overall population is affected by secondhand smoke. Of the population affected by secondhand smoke, 29% of them are exposed in public places. 14% of the student population in Northwest High School has in their personal data a tag indicating asthma-related medical issues. Over 11% of the 32,000, or approximately 3,500 students in CMCSS have asthma-related health tags in their personal records. So when this resolution passes, we will end about 1/3 of secondhand smoke exposure in Montgomery County.
One day, Craig and I went to see how prevalent kids interacted with smoke when they visited the library. In an hour of us being there, we saw 10 people smoking, along with 50 children that had to interact with that smoke. Now, this isn't anything new. We're not trying to vilify anybody. We're trying to just educate the public and protect the younger ones of our community, much like the ones that we saw at the library. It was brought to our attention as we were preparing this week a decade-old state law which prohibits local government from enacting smoking legislation at local levels. In light of this fact, we would like to amend our resolution to reflect the spirit of supporting the Smoke-Free Community Initiative as similarly done with Hamilton County, as is on your desks. When you pass this resolution, you'll need media to alert the public of changes in the county's mindset about public smoking. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Media Arts Academy from Rossview High School.
Good afternoon. If you could please put your attention on this slideshow, it'll be running while we're discussing. Hi, I am Leanna Kaiser, and I'm also here with Becca Strobel, Zoe Williams, and Austin Polster. And we are from the Academy of Media Arts and Technology at Rossview High School. We are here to discuss the designs that we've created for the Smoke-Free campaign and answer any questions you may have. Now we'll be speaking Rebecca Strobel.
When we were first introduced to the project of creating a non-smoking sign to post all around the Montgomery County, most of the students were a bit overwhelmed with the idea of having something we created posted everywhere. Once we had gotten over the initial shock, though, we were able to brainstorm ideas in groups of 2, and after brainstorming ideas and creating slogans and backgrounds that complemented the slogans, we created signs that you're seeing up here. Rearranging the aspects of the current designs can easily be done. Now I pass it to Zoe, who will discuss further detail of the diversity of these designs. In order to make sure we didn't break any of the copyright laws, all the posters you see are original ideas. Our Junior Academy class created 3 different posters with a partner to have as much diversity as we could in a week's time. Also, as you can see, we have centered our ideas around the logo of Montgomery County. With the many amazing ideas to choose from, it could be hard to choose just one. If you still can't choose, the Academy students can easily take the slogan you want from one poster and the picture from another and merge them together to make a completely new poster. Notice how none of the signs show negativity. We are showing that we are not banning smoking, but they cannot smoke there in a certain place.
At this time, do y'all have any questions?
Any questions of the commissioners? I think we owe these fine young adults a round of applause. A very great program. I appreciate each and every one of you caring about this community like you do. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, commissioners, the item that's in your packet will be replaced with this item with 1642 that was handed out. 1643 that was handed out tonight. Commissioner Redd?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question concerning I didn't have it for the students. I just had this for whomever. It says there, therefore it be resolved, the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners assembled that the Montgomery County may authorize to implement a no smoking policy. Does that mean later after that we'll vote on this that will enable us to make the policy and then we will make the policy and come back as a vote here, or will just someone make the policy? I was just.
Are you reading the one they handed out?
No, I'm reading the one that's on the iPad.
Yeah. Well, as I just explained, this one will replace that.
Okay.
And that language
the one in the iPad is being replaced.
That's correct.
Okay, I was thinking the other way around.
That language, it does continue to say that the county be authorized to implement a smoke-free community initiative for all Montgomery County government property.
Okay, the initiative. Then later, whenever the initiative is made, will we go ahead and vote on it at that time?
I think when you vote, my personal opinion, when you if you vote to approve this resolution, you vote to do that.
If you're looking to me, I would think so. You're voting to approve an initiative, but you don't really have a outline of a policy or plan, so that's going to have to follow later.
Okay, well, that's what I just was wondering, whenever we do make the initiative, will this just be indoors, or will this also include outdoor spaces?
It's indoors now.
Indoors now. So this will include all Montgomery County property outdoors, not just at the entryway. I understand the entryway, but it'll be in the far end of the parking lot as well as
correct
by entryway and everywhere.
As it will be defined in the policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding 1643? 1644 is a resolution to adopt amendment of TCA 5510-207, Section 4, relating to electronic traffic citation fees. Ms. Castle, I'm so glad you came to see us tonight.
But this is real quick. A couple of weeks ago, our office, the Circuit Court Clerk's office, went online with the Tennessee Department of Safety with e-citations. Department of Safety is using a software program called Titan, and in the patrol vehicles, they have handheld devices, and now when they pull people over, they can enter all the information in there, and it automatically feeds into our office. And they asked us if we would come and propose this resolution. And what this resolution will do is the moving traffic statutes allows the assessment of an e-citation fee, and it's $5. It's limited for collection for only 5 years. And what's done with that fee is $4 of that fee will go to the law enforcement agency that issues that citation, and that's what helps them pay for the equipment. And then we get $1 for processing all those citations on our end. So that's all this is about. It's primarily will benefit law enforcement agencies more so than our office, but this fee is assessed on all moving traffic citations regardless who writes them. So we'll be collecting money for Highway Patrol, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, and Clarksville Police Department. So if y'all don't have any questions.
Any questions of Ms. Castle? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Resolution 1645 is a resolution authorizing the transfer and utilizing of funds from the Sex Offender Registry Reserve Account. Chief Smith, you going to handle that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office manages the sex offender registry for the entire Montgomery County. Anyone convicted of a sex offense must report within 48 hours and register and pay fees. And 1 year after that, they must report and pay fees. Out of the $150 that each person pays, $100 of that by law is to be retained by the agency and then used in direct support of the registration, which also includes investigations. So the money stays in a reserve account, and we come forward sometimes once a year, maybe twice a year, and request those funds be appropriated for a specific purpose. The investigator who runs the sex offender registry during the course must produce evidence to the court, sometimes comes out of surveillance. And one piece of equipment that we did not have was a pricey camera, a good high-resolution digital camera that is to be used for surveillance purposes. So we're requesting that $2,000 out of those reserve funds be appropriated in our budget to allow him to purchase that piece of equipment. Just want to reiterate that these are fees that those registering on the sex offender registry pay, and these are not tax dollars. Any questions?
Any questions, Chief Smith? Chief, I think you got the next one also.
Yes, sir.
1646, resolution authorizing submission of application for a grant to continue the litter and trash collection program contracted with the Tennessee Department of Transportation.
Yes, sir. Montgomery County has been applying for this grant for several years. And this is something that's done in conjunction with Bi-County Solid Waste Management. It's about a $70,000 grant that's to be used, that we use about $50,000 of that to pay toward the salaries of 2 deputies that work out of the workhouse that takes those inmates eligible to work on a litter crew to pick up trash on state routes and also do some various other things. And then about $17,000 of those funds go toward that Bi-County uses to buy educational material that they hand out when they do presentations at schools and other public meetings and whatnot. There is about an additional $40,000 that the county appropriates every year to finish out the salaries of the 2 deputies, salaries and benefits of the 2 deputies that works the litter grant bus.
Any questions, Chief Smith? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is Resolution 1647, resolution authorizing the application for a grant from the Recreational Trail Program, RTP, and/or the Local Parks and Recreation Fund, LPRF, by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for the Montgomery County Greenway. Commissioner Albert?
Thank you, Mayor. All this resolution is just allowing us to apply for a grant. If we're not accepted for the grant, then it doesn't cost us anything.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. If we get accepted for the grant, what would it cost us?
There's 2 grants out there. There's the RTP, which is the $250,000, which would cost us $50,000 in matching funds. And the governor about 3 weeks ago gave the Parks Fund more money. So there's $1 million grant application out there where it's a 50-50 match. But we don't know which one we're going to apply for both. We don't know if either that will be awarded. And these awards will not come until probably November, December. They're due by April 22nd.
Any other questions? Thank you. Resolution 1648, a resolution to adopt Robert's Rules of Order revised 4th edition, abbreviated RONR, whatever that means, for the monthly county commission meetings. I know there was some discussion last month regarding which edition, and this just basically lets this body adopt a set of rules that everybody will work off of. Any questions? Commissioner Sokol?
Thank you, Mayor. This one says Edition 4. Is there a reason why we're not going to adopt Edition 11?
You asking me?
You can address it.
Well, Commissioner, there are more modern iterations than that have come since number 4. Most of the changes since number 4 are based upon questions of electronic participation, electronic communications, which frankly aren't really applicable to our body. If you look at this resolution, it emphasizes that we'll adopt this set of rules, but those rules will not be followed when state statutes indicate otherwise, and our state statutes do conflict that. So I looked at all of the rules, and then frankly, as a practical matter, Robert's Rules of Order number 4 is easily available and accessible to each of the commissioners on a website, on an online website.
That's free?
That's free, and IT has been able to locate that icon and website and put it on your iPad so all 21 of you can start researching when somebody asks me a question, and all 22 of you can figure out, 21 of you can check my work and see if I'm right all at the same time. So it's an online version and it's free.
Well, I was just asking because I bought a Robert's Rules of Order books about 10 years ago, and that was edition number 10.
Well, I've given you really the explanation, and it's far more a practical one than anything else. It's very accessible on the web that you all have accessible there. I will say this, Mayor, in my haste, which probably should be abbreviated ROR 4th edition. That was an abbreviation for Robert's Rules, the newly revised, which is frankly edition 9, 10, and 11.
Thank you.
And I may look for somebody to amend just that abbreviation.
Okay. Any other questions? 1648. Commissioner Gannon?
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a question. I know we found the 4 that was free of charge. What would the charge be if we found Robert's Rules 11 on the app?
I didn't look. I didn't look carefully. And in some cases, the practical difference is you're buying the written printed edition as opposed to the online edition. And the 4th edition online is pretty easily accessible and searchable as an internal document, and as opposed to looking through a book. But I really didn't check on all the cost.
Thank you.
If you request, I'll find that out for you for the next meet.
Sure.
Mr. Harvey, did you say that the main difference between edition number 4 and the other editions has to do with electronic emails and that type stuff, which would not affect the rules of this body as we operate in here?
Yes. All of the changes to Robert's Rules of Order that have come about in the last decade, they haven't gone back and changed things like who's in control of the meeting and what a motion to table means or anything like that. They've all been technological advances that they've incorporated in the rules themselves. So I don't really think you're giving up any substance that affects this body.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Harvey? 1649, resolution to, what, who? Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't pop up. Commissioner Genus?
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a comment, I pulled it up online here, and it does talk about that the 4th edition's copyright has expired, and that's why it's so freely to look at. And it looks like number 11 is quite expensive, 200 and some pages, and on and on and on. So, it costs prohibitive, shall we say.
Well, that was the consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? 1649 is a resolution to amend the budgets of various funds for the fiscal year 2016. Excuse me, in certain areas of revenues and expenditures. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll turn to page 2 of 3 on the revenue section of the resolution, the first 2 items are about 3/4 of the way down the page. The first one is regarding the WIC grant with the Health Department, which was amended by the state in the amount of $74,600. The second part is in regards to the tobacco settlement grant, also through the Health Department, in the amount of $28,309. The last item on the revenue side on the next page is just insurance recovery from the Sheriff's Office due to a vehicle accident. If you go to the next page, the First Amendment is in regards to juvenile court. It's just a grant which was amended by the state. This is for the purchase of SCRAM devices for juvenile court. The second portion, the $2,704, is to be appropriated for the maintenance and repair of vehicles with the Sheriff's Office. The next items down at the bottom of the page are in regards to the Health Department with the WIC grant and the tobacco settlement grant, just amendments approved by the state. If you go to the final page, the last item is the one item I wanted to mention to you. Back when we did the budget, we removed all of the nonprofit organizations, save the United Way. One of the items in regards to Mid-Cumberland HRA are dues that we pay on a yearly basis. It's based on our population. We removed that, and we just need to add that back into the appropriation budget for this year. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Taylor? All right. 16410 is a resolution to adopt the voting method for the commission chamber system installed February 2016 for the monthly county commission meeting. I know this has been a kind of hotly debated topic. It went to the Budget Committee, and actually this resolution failed at the Budget Committee, but we felt it still needed to come forward to the commission. I know several commissioners have, quite frankly, have voiced their opinion towards me regarding why are we changing, and then I have a lot of members that are saying that your button may not, well, now it's working. Oh, thank you. Any questions regarding 16410? All right, our nominating committee, Commissioner Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Nominating committee has nominations for the Board of Equalization. Mr. Robert Fort nominated to replace Chuck Paget for a 2-year term to expire April 2018, and Mr. Gary Ellis nominated to replace Bobby G. Wall for a 2-year term to expire April 2018, and Chris Barnett nominated to serve another 2-year term to expire April 2018. Mr. Fort and Ellis's profile is in your resolutions, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. Under the county mayor nominations, under judicial commissioner, excuse me, Carolyn K. Honholt nominated to serve a 1-year term as a new part-time judicial commissioner, term to expire April 2017. Under county mayor appointments, Senior Citizens Board, this is a 3-year term. Maureen Potter, appointed to fill the unexpired term of Joyce Paget, who has resigned, term to expire April 2017. And Ms. Honholt, her letter is behind that in your packet. Under your reports, you'll see the reports filed. I don't think we have any old business. I see no hands for old business. Under our announcements, Rivers and Spires will begin next Thursday, April 14th, and run through April the 16th. And you and a guest are invited to attend a VIP launch event for Fiberfast Gaming by CDE Light Band during Rivers and Spires on Friday, April 15th from 4:30 to 5:30 with hors d'oeuvres, beverages, and gig of extreme gaming located in the parking garage on Franklin Street. And we have no further business. We'll be adjourned. Thank y'all.